Okay, I think we can go ahead and get started if that's all right with you.
Sure.
Wonderful. Well, it's nice to see you, and thanks for everyone who's joined thus far. Now I will go ahead and introduce our speaker, and we'll bring Mike to the screen. So, Mike here, you'll have to say your last name for me because I didn't ask you before.
I'm Brazilian, but my last name is Polish. It's Einstein, like Albert Einstein.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So that is good to know.
Polish spelling for Einstein, yes.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So Mike Curie, he's the co-founder of Ace Ventures and also the chairman of GB Angels, which, as I understand it, is the largest angel network in Brazil, or somewhere close to it. And so there's been quite a long journey that I've read, and obviously you're a Seraf customer, which is not why you were chosen, but mostly because Ace Ventures, both what you've done in the last 10 years and your involvement in the angel community, as well as sort of the formal venture side of that, is something that I think could give a lot of exposure to people here that are interested in learning about what's happening in the country. So we're very happy to have you. And I think for the first, quote unquote question, if you could give us a walkthrough of your journey into venture capital and founding Ace Ventures. I know you started as an accelerator and then sort of transitioned out of that. Now you do a lot of things. But if you could give us an insight into everything that you have going on and how you got there, that would be a helpful place to start.
Okay. Thank you, Alicia, for having me. Yes, we've been using Seraf for I can't even remember how long. Okay, just this quick disclosure. So if we make it really short, I started my career as an executive in a multinational company, a French company. And then they sent me overseas, France, China, and then I went back to Brazil and was not a digital entrepreneur. I used to make condoms, and I had the condom business that I sold. Yeah. And then from there, I started a biotech company, moved to the US. So I'm in New Jersey now,
Hmm.
and I go back and forth to Brazil several times a year. And we started a biotech company that, to make the story short, we listed in the stock exchange, and then we sold the company, closed capital, and we sold the company a few years later. It was a product for psoriasis. And after that, I said, I don't want to deal with regulation anymore
Hmm.
because condoms are highly regulated. FDA here was very regulated. I want to go to the free market. What is the free market? Free market is the internet. I'm talking about 12, 14 years ago. Um, and that's when we started a clone for Open Table in Brazil. So I started in Brazil. By then and still today, I mean, copy models that work in some other countries, especially in the US, it's pretty common overseas. So there was no solution in Brazil for reservations or restaurant reservations online. We did that. So I learned, being a digital entrepreneur, what are the pains? And we sold the company 2 years later to the Chinese Baidu. Were buying a clone of Groupon, and we became the engine, the reservation engine for imagine all the discounts that they used to sell online in Brazil. And so when it's called Peixe Urbano and Click On, these two guys were bought by Baidu. They also bought us. It was like a triple deal. And that's when we started Ace, right after that. At the same time, I was already doing some angel investing here in the US. I have like a portfolio of about 20 companies that I've been investing through time. I joined a couple of angel groups here. But the idea was, how can we help the Brazilian entrepreneur? 12 years ago, there was not a lot of stuff going on. The ecosystem was beginning. Not a lot of VCs, not a lot of angels, not a lot of angel groups, maybe a handful. So how can we help the entrepreneur and eventually also make some money? And that's when we said, you know what, why don't we? And I got involved with an accelerator here in New Jersey, and I said, why don't we copy the model and open an accelerator in Brazil?
Hmm.
So that was 12 years ago with our own capital. And typical acceleration model, you bring 10, 15 companies per batch, everyone together, accelerate, invest, grow, and eventually sell their business. So that was the original model. And we are one of the dinosaurs of the internet back in Brazil since today. I mean, a lot of accelerators appeared then, died, and we stayed because we reinvented ourselves several times, as you were saying. So if we fast forward to today, ACE is now no longer an accelerator per se. We do acceleration, but we do it online. So that was a decision that we took even before the pandemic, to accelerate online. So we have a platform where we choose the startups and they go in, they get all the content, and we do touch points until we believe it's time to invest. So it's very nice because it's proprietary deal flow for us. So that stayed. We have today 8 funds that we've been managing. Out of the 8 funds, 6 funds are totally deployed and are really creating great returns. We're really above the average. I mean, we can talk about the returns of VCs in Latin America. We are way above the average, coming from 5 times cash on cash to 25 times cash on cash, depending on the cohort and the vintage. So our investors are pretty happy. We're happy. And it shows that still in Brazil, and I would say in Latin America, there's a big opportunity for large returns faster than what people expect. So after that, so we have the investment part. We're raising a new fund now. And we have also something interesting that happened, I would say about 5 years ago. And it was funny, I was in Brazil and the landline rang in the office, which is still, I don't know who has it, who has landlines, but all right. And I answered the phone, and it was the innovation director for Bosch, a German company that makes tools, industrial tools and also household tools like drills and stuff like that. And he says, look, I want to work with startups. I want to do open innovation. I don't know how. You guys are very much involved in the ecosystem. Can you help me? And I said, yeah, sure. And I'm thinking it's going to cost, but yeah, we'll do it. And that became a business. From that phone call, we jumped into the opportunity to connect large corporations to startups. And eventually this evolved into a consulting business for innovation and new products for large corporations. And I'm talking about Fortune 500 companies in Brazil that go from GlaxoSmithKline to Santander Bank to Audi, even Google. So these companies hired us to do basically 2 things. Hire us to do 2 things. Work with startups, because it's very hard for a corporation to really work with a startup in a proper way. I think you know that pretty well. And work as a startup, be lean and throw out new products or new even spin-offs and new ideas faster, as a startup would do. If it fails, throw it away, start again. This is like a very different, I mean, this is a brain explosion. When we talk about this with the C-level of large corporations, they say, that's not possible. And we say, yeah, it's possible. We can help you to do it. So we've been doing this for a while. It's been great. It's been a great ride, and it's doing really well. And besides that, we also created lately an M&A boutique, because we invested through time in 150 companies in Brazil, and we sold 39. So our exit ratio is pretty strong. We call it an exit machine. We sell companies every year since inception. I'm talking about 10 years now. And with this expertise, we decided to start a boutique, an M&A boutique. On the sell side, always helping the entrepreneur. So we help entrepreneurs that are ready to sell, to find buyers and negotiate and do the exit. So sometimes it's an early exit, a later exit, and it's doing really great. 2 years in operation, we sold 7 companies overseas, not only in Brazil. And these are not our portfolio. These are companies that they hire us to sell. Okay? So this is, and finally, the 4th business unit that we have under our holding is an education platform for innovation and also for the jobs of the future. So this is more like a B2C approach. We're moving into B2B with that. So now we understand that large corporations that are clients want to buy a package for 15, 20 people that should be taking these classes, and it's doing really well. So this is basically what ACE does. It's a lot. It's a lot to digest. Yeah. But it's a holding company with 4 business units on it. So
Okay.
this is what we do today. And then on the parallel side, talking about angel investing, about 6 years ago, a lot of friends from my university got in touch saying, Mike, how do I invest in startups? I don't know how. Help me. And then I said, you know what? Maybe we can create an alumni angel investing group. I would say similar to Harvard Business Angels. And then I talked to the school and they said it's a great idea. And today we have 330 members. We are one of the most, if not the most active investment angel investment group in Brazil. 6 years, it's about 50 investments, $50 million. So it's been a good ride. And I would say the difference is that we are organized as a business. A lot of angel investing in Brazil was like more like a happy hour situation. And we professionalize. It's totally professional and it's doing really great. And we can talk a little bit about it, but we're even launching now a tokenized fund to invest in startups.
Okay. Through the
With
angel group.
yes, our own currency, our own token. And it's fantastic because we're going to invest in 10, 15 companies as a sidecar fund to the angel group. This is through a token platform. The largest is called Mercado Bitcoin, is the largest token platform in South America. And when you buy the token gives you the right to participate in these 10, 15 investments. But the beauty of it is that it's attached to the net asset value of the fund. So the token will go up with the valuations going up, or the token's going to go down with the valuations going down. And in 18 months, it unlocks and you can sell.
Okay.
You can trade your token. So you have liquidity on your part and you can fraction the token. So if you invest 50 grand, you can sell $1,000 of that token because it's going up or down. So it's an open platform. And it's very different. As far as I understand, no one ever has done this. We can go, I mean, I don't want to steal we're talking about Brazil today, but we're doing some innovation there. And it's been doing great. I mean, it's very interesting for the angel investors, what we're doing with that proposal for the token.
No, I
Yeah.
was going to say, I think that in itself is worth maybe another session. I'm very interested. And I also think all of our.
It's been crazy with that. It's been like I mean, everyone loves it. They jumped on the opportunity really fast. We raised $5 million like this.
Yeah.
For this.
Well, and I think the liquidity portion of that is very important too.
Yeah.
And our, I mean, obviously Seraf has a number of angel groups on our platform, and that's not something that I have seen or heard of at all.
No. Yeah, I know. I studied a lot, and it took 9 months to put this thing together. So,
okay.
Yeah, we can talk about it another day, maybe.
Yeah, I would actually really like to. So
at Seraf, we get the opportunity and the privilege to work with some of the best angel investors and angel groups in the entire world by providing them and empowering their back office operations with deal flow and portfolio management software. We also, too, for anybody that is new to Seraf, we have about 12,000 weekly readers to our Seraf Compass. There we write award-winning educational content for early stage investing.
I'm Alicia, and I am the CEO of the company. And so that's why I'm here running the webinar for everyone. And I will start off here with an introduction to the Brazilian startup market, because I think that's kind of helpful to just kind of do a little bit of benchmarking in terms of size. So here there's, roughly 14,000 startups in Brazil. In the United States, kind of depending on when you look, you've got around 75, 80,000 startups. There's 25 unicorns in the country, but that also accounts for half of all the unicorns in Latin America. And certainly, I think Brazil is viewed as the most active country for tech and venture investing. You've got a couple other hubs, but I think, at least in terms of what we see from the Seraf side of things, both in like people who purchase our software and use the software to track investments, Brazil is certainly a tech hub for us. Growth in startups is happening at about 10 to 15% annually. The actual dollars deployed, it was trending in the 4 to 5 billions 2021 jumped up to 9-10 billion, but that I think was a flare in everyone, right? So a flare in all the rounds and all the valuations and all the round sizes that we saw kind of worldwide at that point. And then we've dropped back down to somewhere closer to 5, which is just like a steady growth number for the country of Brazil. Key industries are kind of also what you would expect. So I see a lot of fintech activity, but there's certainly ed tech, clean tech, retail tech, transportation. And so that's something that we'll touch on a little bit here too, just kind of identify what industries are particularly interesting and particularly stand out in the country. And then finally, the economic drivers that I, at least just in my research, thought were important is one, the digital economy growth, so access to technology and kind of democratization of the digital economy in the country. Government regulation and incentive, which is not uncommon to countries that are a little bit earlier in their tech journeys, but also the incentive part here, because I think looking back on our webinar with India, when we look at kind of the Indian ecosystem, there's regulation around it, but the incentive part to kind of drive it forward was a little bit lacking, whereas Brazil seems to have a couple of really strong programs coming from the government to incentivize startup founding and growth. Global market integrations, which is just genuinely important. The whole reason we're doing this is because of the BRICS bloc that has been established over the last few years, Brazil being the first country in that to represent the B. So, and then the diverse market needs, just because the country you've got 200 and some million people in it over a fairly large landmass. And so I think there's quite a bit of diversity just in any given region of the country and what you see that the population might need in terms of startups. So that's the quick overview here. I think where we'll start is in all of the endeavors that you guys have been rolling out over the last 10, 12 years, what have you seen change from the time you started to now? I'm very, very interested in your perspective on both how the Angel Group has sort of developed, and then also how ACE Ventures, how you guys have kind of what differences you've seen in terms of intake in startups in the accelerator, and how they've kind of progressed and how they've changed over the last decade. I think your perspectives on that would be really interesting.
Okay, so just a few numbers. You were asking about number of investors in Angel. There are 14,000 registered startups in what we call the Brazilian Startup Association, but there are also about 14,000 angel investors identified as angels in Brazil. It's interesting, it's the same number of startups. That doesn't count, as you said, family offices and others that don't show, but this is what we have. I also had started it's not an angel capital association structure, but it's a meeting where we meet with all the angel groups, all the leadership of every single angel group in Brazil, to talk about best practices and numbers and things like that. And we are today about 29 angel groups, active angel groups, a lot of them alumni that came after we created our own. And so other universities said, well, this is a great model, let's do it. So it's been growing. Okay, so coming back to your question, it's been growing a lot. Angel investing has been growing a lot. VCs from 2021, right after the pandemic, we doubled the number of funds in Brazil, more or less, about double now, 50% increase back. A lot of new funds came out of the blue, which it could be a problem. Everybody knows that first time fund raising is not easy, and a lot of them are going to die for lack of experience. This is our take, but they're there. There's a lot of money. There's money that was funneled for a lot of time, and when the interest rates went down, everything came up. Similar to here, same timing even. And now there is a correction going on, same as in the US, same all over the world. Correction, interest rates going down, going up, especially in Brazil, they went up again. So there was a correction where the money went, from angel and investing in startups into, I would say, more traditional investments. And now it's coming back. But the correction was about 30%. So we see that the volume went down, valuations pushing down from 2021, which was the big FOMO, coming back to normality. I would say if you look at the trend before 21, 22, it was a steady growth of about I would say 10-15% per year. Then it went up like crazy, maybe 30% for these 2 years, and now it's going back. If you erase 2020, 21, 22, the growth continues on a normal and I would say healthy way. Okay?
Yeah.
And that's good for us as investors because the landscape is cheaper. Valuations are 30% lower, especially on early stage. So it's a great opportunity for investors in Brazil now, Latin America. So just to giving you a little bit of numbers. And then coming back for some numbers are interesting, and what we saw changing is first of all, regarding the Brazilian presence, the internet or the tech presence, I had some numbers for you here. About 87% of the population, the internet penetration is 87% of the population. And even in very poor areas, people don't have a refrigerator, but they have a cell phone. It's crazy as that. So that's like a given. Almost 220 million people, almost everyone has a phone in Brazil. Brazil is the second largest user base for WhatsApp, but everything is on WhatsApp now. So business rely on WhatsApp, small business rely on WhatsApp, customer service is WhatsApp, communications is WhatsApp. No one uses cell phones anymore for calling. Messaging doesn't exist. It's WhatsApp for everything. So there's several solutions that you plug into your phone now to buy, to sell, delivery, banking. We'll talk a little about that and so on. So that was a huge change. And the Brazilians embrace WhatsApp. The Brazilians are the people that stay longer online using WhatsApp than anyone in the world.
That I did not know. I did not know. Even so you're, Angel Group Network, you guys are on WhatsApp for communications?
The Angel Group, 330 people, only works. The community is extremely strong. So we have 2 groups in WhatsApp. We have, let's say, the business group, where we talk about deal flow and so on. And then we have the community group. In the community group, we have things like, I have an apartment for rent. My daughter is looking for, a job. And I'm selling a car. That way, until to business. And the engagement is there. 330 people talking at the same time. And then subgroups are created. It's very organic. It's incredible. It's very easy to manage a community like that. We have the same thing at ACE with our investors and our mentors. We have 150 mentors at ACE. They communicate. In general, a community manager in Brazil will use WhatsApp to make it happen. And it works perfectly well. And when WhatsApp had a limitation of like 120 people, and now it's like open, and now it became like, wow, it exploded. Facebook, we're the fourth market for Facebook. We have the 2 largest cities for Uber in the world, São Paulo and Rio. Paris is in the middle, New York eventually, but there's Lyft in New York, so talk about only Uber. 3rd largest TikTok in the world, and 2nd largest user base of Netflix. Okay, people don't realize that. No. Another thing that we have, so taking this into consideration, of course, startups evolved, but the Brazilian, I would say, entrepreneur is very much focused on fixing deficiencies. Deficiencies, economic deficiencies, logistics deficiencies, health, and so on. So when you look at the health tech, all the techs that we see there, they're looking into that. How I can bring, or how can I help or erase a deficiency that was created by the economy, by the government, or by the situation that we live in. And these are the ones that thrive more and more. And the big difference, I would say, Alicia, when we started this 12 years ago, everyone was like, to have a big exit, your startup needs to be global. And that's gone. You have 220 million people with the numbers that I just gave you. Sorry. You don't need to be global to have a unicorn in Brazil. Right. You don't need to be global to have an IPO in Brazil. You don't need to be global to have a huge exit in Brazil. You can take care of Brazil only. Is it nice to be global? Yeah. Could it get bigger? Definitely. Do we need to focus on that and start the business just for that? No. That's a huge difference. And then I'll give you examples. Nubank, I think everybody heard about Nubank. Nubank, created in Brazil, is the largest digital bank in the world, with subsidiaries in Argentina, Mexico, Colombia, and soon Europe, or eventually even the US. It's the large. There's no, and it erases by far any digital bank in the US. By far. You can't even compare. You can't even compare. Mercado Libre, which is an Argentinian company, is today the market cap of Mercado Libre, which I could compare to the Brazilian Amazon, if I could say so, Brazilian and Latin American Amazon. The market cap is larger than Petrobras. It's the largest market cap in South America, tech, as we have here, right? The largest in South America. Any stock market in South America is the largest market cap. And finally, we have iFood. iFood is the precursor of the delivery apps that we use now, DoorDash and so on. This was in Brazil way before DoorDash even started. I believe that DoorDash cloned Brazil, iFood in Brazil. But the interesting part is that, of course, all of this is intertwined very much with WhatsApp. And I can link from my WhatsApp into iFood, and I can have food delivery, but not only food. If you need, and this is the best example I can get, if you need cash, hard cash, for any reason, you can ask a delivery guy to bring you $100. They will charge you $105 on your app, but they will give you cash. The guy's going to show up with the motorcycle and give you the money that you need. So it's not only food delivery, it's whatever you might think about.
Okay.
Yeah, so very different and evolved, especially with mega cities. Brazil is, I think South America is a little different than also if you think about the US. We have several megalopolis, which are cities which are more than 2-3 million people. We have a few in the US, and then it's more spread out in like 500,000, 300,000, the larger cities. In South America, no, we have 29 million people in Sao Paulo. You have about half of the population of Argentina is in Buenos Aires and so on. And this creates testing grounds. It's very easy because in one neighborhood, you have so many situations going on and startups test. They test there. You don't need to, you test here to expand. So, so we've seen this move. People are riding the wave of the internet presence in Brazil, and that has changed, as I said, the approach of like, let's focus into Brazil. Now, the number one most famous, I would say, market in Brazil, tech-wise, is fintech, right? So I mentioned Nubank, but Brazil is very good with fintech. And why? It's an inheritance from the elevated interest rates and inflation that we used to have in the 80s. And you have to imagine that I'm talking about up to the crazy number of 80% per month, not per year. So if you didn't index everything, you needed to make indexes everywhere. Your bank account somehow had to grow and you had to invest, and prices were indexed to US dollar. You used to lose reference because in the morning, bread costs $1, in the afternoon, it costs $1.20. So that system created opportunities for startups to plug in and start creating digital banking and digital solutions for the banking industry. And the regulation is low, pretty well. The central bank is saying, let's do open finance, let's approve digital transfers. And even the central bank in Brazil has a plan to have their own digital currency in 2026. Sponsored by the US government. So what does that mean? Today, I can send you money, Alicia, from my phone instantly. It doesn't matter what bank account you have. It doesn't matter what solution do you use. It's called Pix. I can send you a Pix immediately, instantly, you're going to get the money. There's not, in the US to do that, it's Venmo, eventually Zelle. I don't need none of that in Brazil. We don't need none of that. From your bank account, you create a PIX number. If you give me your email, and you can choose by email, by phone number, and I can send you the money. And that created a huge opportunity for people that don't even have a bank account to receive money back and forth. So the bank, the people that cannot afford bank accounts are back into the economy because of the startup fintech, I would say, universe in Brazil. So that's very important. So quick question, very long answer. Sorry.
That's okay. I think it's wonderful. This is very, very interesting. How do you account for the rapid digital adoption in the country? Like you guys, the numbers that you gave us are surprising to me. Just, I mean, partly that's my own ignorance, right? What I don't know about the country, but what is it, a cultural thing? Is it like an openness and like what drives all of that adoption?
Well, as I said, I would say there's several things. If we think about the culture, yes, because the Brazilians are more open. That's why do we spend so much time on WhatsApp? Because people like to communicate. So they like to share. They're very much into sharing, showing what they're doing or not. It's part of the culture. So I think that was the immediate adoption for all the social media and including the communication tools. I don't call WhatsApp anymore a social media. For me, it's a communication tool. It's beyond that. People just embrace this really fast. And of course, with broadband getting stronger, higher, the adoption was faster. 5G is present in Brazil. It goes really well. So people adopted really fast because they can use their phone instead of having a computer. It's very much cheaper. There's the cost also involved of having a computer. So they embrace you don't need a computer to be online, right? And that changed completely the whole way people use I would say use the internet and use the digital solutions. So I would say that's the most striking difference, or to answer your question, why it's cultural. Now, again, I can have a bank without having a bank account. So I can participate in the economy that until technology didn't enable that, they couldn't be able to participate in the economy. So that evolved really fast. So it's helping people to get reintegrated and smaller business to thrive.
Right. Yeah, thank you. So I'm just cognizant of time, and I do want to get to some of the Q&A, but there's a couple questions I still want to get to. So first, I want to talk about a little bit about your guys' performance and how you've seen so many exits, because that, not even benchmarking with the country, but benchmarking globally in the US, anywhere else, is outstanding. I think I would say that that's not close. And so can you talk to me a little bit, especially because again, just contrasting with our last webinar in the country of India, something that a lot of the prospective investors, people coming into the country, are concerned about is liquidity and being able to get money back out, right? And I think with any sort of quote unquote emerging, and I don't even know that I would call Brazil an emerging country at this point, but any economy like that, it's a question for investors. And so could you speak to that a little bit, both how you guys have been able to do it and how you view that a little bit more broadly?
I'll give you just a few examples, and this is from we are raising some money for ACE itself, so I have a lot of numbers, and whoever is interested, I'm not here to sell anything, but for instance, we have funds here that gave us 19 times cash on cash, and I still have unrealized returns. So the fund that paid 19 times still can make 4 times more because we didn't sell every single company. I have another fund, 15 times, still have 2.5 times to go, and so on. The average is very strong. I was looking into PitchBook. The global VC funds are paying 1.6 times cash on cash. So we're like 10 times more.
Yeah.
How? Right? How?
That's the question. I don't know.
So we look into 1,500 companies per year to invest. We invest in 1% of that. Okay. So 15. So as we're very known, the brand is very strong. We have a lot of deal flow, proprietary from the training, acceleration, but also deal flow because we do a lot of, we have very strong reach. So people come to us, plus everything we do to go after the startups that we like, of course. We get in early. So when we say we like, We get in at seed, pre-seed, eventually Series A, but eventually has to be like a very good play. So we work on the early stage and we help the companies to evolve. We really do help. You know, some people say they help, they don't, we really do help. We have a machine going to help the startup. So we saw incredible growth. And how we do it, 90% of our exits were early exits in the sense of it's not an IPO. We're not dreaming about IPOs. It's very hard and harder and harder. So even when an entrepreneur says, I need a Series A and I'm going to IPO in 2 years, okay, goodbye. Okay, that's not you. You don't understand the game. And we understood that, and this is very much aligned with angel investing, an early exit will generate more cash, more returns to the entrepreneur and to the angel, rather than going for the VC route. Some companies at the end of the day qualify for the VC route, so we split. You're going to be a VC because you need a lot of money, you're B2C, and you need millions of users to make it happen. And it's going to take maybe 5, 6, 10 years. You're going to dilute a lot as an entrepreneur. Eventually, the angel investor will dilute too because the VCs are going to come in. And the VC's expectation is 10, I don't know, 20, 30 times their money. Then, okay, that's one way to see the business. And that's not our way to see the business. We go the other way. We invest, we prepare the company, say, look, if you're not a VC route, it looks like your business is not going to be VC. We're going to prep your business, and in a couple of years, we're going to sell the business. And it's been working. And we say we have an exit machine. Since inception, which is 12 years ago, 2 years later, we started to sell companies every year. Every year. And who is buying our companies? Large corporations, the strategic buyers. I'm not saying it's a funding round. I'm not saying it's a secondary. I'm not selling my shares to someone else. Is Glassdoor buying Love Mondays, which was the Brazilian clone, our company, our investment? Glassdoor took over 100%. Now it's Glassdoor Brazil. Good example. You guys know the name. Okay. It's Itaú Bank, one of the largest banks in Brazil, taking over a credit card consolidation software startup that we had. They took over the whole thing. So that's what we promote. And what makes us happy are, I would say the purpose of all this is looking into founders that are not, some VCs are looking for the Harvard, Stanford education, you know, that kind of entrepreneur. Even in Brazil, because they go overseas and so on. And we don't care about that. We care about the guy that works really hard. The best entrepreneurs, the best exits were extremely poor, so poor that they had to sleep in our offices when they came to accelerate. They left their towns somewhere in Brazil, and we said, okay, you put like a little sleeping couch on the floor, you can sleep here. And they would do that for a few months. And these guys sold their companies for 800 million. I have 2 examples like that. And so this is the type of entrepreneur that has that really wants it. We're looking for those guys. And I think combining the early stage, the guys that really want it, plus attacking the inefficiencies, as I said, all of that combined, plus the expertise. We sold 39 companies from the 150 that we invested. We have 12 write-offs only. The rest is ongoing. It's working. And this is the strategy. Are we going to get 1 or 2 that we have some VC routes, definitely. But the bulk of this is the exits, strategic exits. And different enough, our funds are special vehicle purposes where I distribute immediately to the shareholders. I'm not waiting 10 years, typical VC, to distribute at the end of the fund. So every time we have an exit, the investors get money. Every time. And that rolls, because then when we go to the fund number 2, they come back. The investors come back. And fund number 3, they come back, and so on. So that's a little bit the secret sauce here.
Okay. Well, I think that's a huge note for anyone on the call, both just people that are interested, but also investors, because your statistics are at least right now, the opposite of, I think, most, right? So you have 12 write-offs, 10%, and that is the if you have the traditional venture fund, 10% succeeding, that would be great. Like 10% exits that are doing really well, that would be fantastic. But you guys have that in terms of write-offs. That's wonderful. So thank you for sharing that. I think I've not heard that strategy before. And I also think that there's no, at least in most of the funds that I have spoken with, at least stateside, are really focused on the IPO and growth route. And a lot of that growth is just manufactured through fundraising rounds. Whereas you guys looking at, I know you have an M&A advisory, but that's a focus from the start is if you get to a certain point, we're trying to strategically exit rather than run up numbers and then IPO and then your stock drops immediately and you just kind of foist it on the public. That's a different model. And I like everything about that.
I love what you said. I mean, manufactured growth.
Yeah.
I'm not for that. I'm for natural growth.
Right.
With the proper amount of raising. Not a huge amount. I'm going to create a unicorn here, $1 billion. We don't look for that. That's not us.
Yeah. And I think that's different too. Yes. As an ethos, that is very different to a lot of what you see in the United States. So thank you for that very much. Final question for you before I got one thing in the Q&A, but what would you suggest for either, angels or just generally, high net worth investors? What would you suggest to them as a first step into investing into the country? So if they wanted to start looking at startups, would you suggest, I don't know if there's any active or very active crowdfunding platforms, but is it, crowdfunding? Is it joining an angel group? Is it just being an LP on a fund, right? So what would you suggest in terms of entry into the market?
Just one interesting thing, I'm looking even at a number here. First half 2024, 46% of investments in the tech ecosystem in Latin America, 46% is international. It's not only Latin. It's money coming from overseas. Okay, so there are people investing in Brazil and in Latin America constantly. And some people say, I don't understand how to do it, right? That was your question. But it's happening. What do I suggest? Joining an angel group is an option. There are some of them that are very open for international investors. If they want to talk to me, I'm here open. We have the funds, and we have also the GV Angels, our alumni group. We do some exceptions. Usually you should be alumni, but there are some exceptions to the rules. So we can think about that. And of course, going to events and try to follow all the publications and so on. If you want to venture alone, it's a little harder to venture alone if you are from overseas and if you don't know the market. It's better to join a group and to try to get some information. That's something that we can even, if you want to do a follow-on on this and eventually, have an open discussion about how better invest in Brazil. What's interesting today is that the exchange rate is very favorable if you have US. So cost-wise, a 20, or let's put it this way, a $50,000 investment here in the US will go a long way there. A long way. Costs much lower. So with the exchange rate, $50,000 in a startup or in a fund, it starts to, okay, we can do stuff with that. $50,000 here, it doesn't go too far in the US, right? So that's very favorable. As I said, valuations are lower, 30% lower than 2 years ago. So there's a lot of opportunity. Don't be afraid of the bureaucracy of sending money. Is very easy. Some people had the experience in the past, so sending money to Brazil was very complicated. That's no more. It's very simple now. As I was saying, there are fintechs that do that. So that's very simple. Usually, you can invest directly in a company as I would say, a convertible note, very common. Or if you want to be a shareholder down in Brazil directly from overseas, it's totally possible. If not, you can create an LLC and then follow through. It's also an option. And let's keep in mind that most of the companies that eventually raise money as a Series B with funds that, in general, Series B, it's a Brazilian fund joining forces with an overseas fund. and then they do what we call the flip, which is they go to Cayman, Delaware, and then you can invest overseas, and the Delaware structure owns the Cayman and the Brazilian entity. It's a little complicated, but it's like to promote international funds to getting in. But then it's not for angels anymore. It starts to get expensive, right? So basically, try to join a group, try to join an accelerator, or invest with an accelerator, or do your own research. And please, I'm available.
Okay. And just as a question, so I don't have to email you later, if anyone reaches out to me, I can pass along your info.
Absolutely.
Or just generally. Okay. Thank you. So
or if
moving
you
to
want, I mean, I can put, is there like a chat here if they want to make it fast here?
Oh, I'm sure there is.
Here, my email. There you go.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, because I'm sure I have people reach out to me on LinkedIn directly and ask if for context. So I'll send that if anyone asks. So then let's see. Question from Omer about the business climate in Brazil. So several years ago, I read that there's a lot of bureaucracy, regulation, and regulations that strangle new businesses and startups. Has this been changing for the better over the last several years? And do you see continuous improvement in that direction?
Yeah, so as I said, the financial part is going to more and more deregulation. They're embracing technology, so that's a plus. I don't know if you follow, but there is a tax reform that was voted in Brazil last year, and it's going to be put in place as of now, January. And the taxation system in Brazil is very complicated, and they're simplifying it with a VAT tax. And before we didn't have that. So like a sales tax, single tax, before was several taxes. So that's going to simplify a lot, and that's going to save a lot of money and make, I would say, entrepreneurs' life easier. Today, the accounting system is very complicated. You spend a lot of time and money getting it done. It's a distraction for anyone, and this is going to change. So it's going to be a big boost, I believe, to help. There's a big boost also on pushing ag tech, agricultural, because Brazil is a powerhouse. So whatever relates to agricultural technology has a lot of like, keep going, let's go. There's investment, there's help, there's a lot of money from the government. There's a lot of money from the government for startups, also funding for startups, a lot of grants and programs like that. So yeah, it's moving really fast, and it's simplifying. It's way simpler than what it used to be. Way simpler. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Next question for you. Actually, there's quite a few. I just as an FYI, people they couldn't see your email in the chat, and so I answered it in the Q&A. So that's in there. I dropped it in there for them, so you should have that now. Let's go to Taylor has a good question. So what are the biggest lessons or insights you've learned from your worst performing investments?
It's gonna sound cliche.
That's okay.
Cliche. The founder is not coachable. The founder knows everything and doesn't listen to anyone. He's pipe dreaming. He's not here. He's in the moon. Maybe Mars now. Everybody wants to go there. So that was the first thing, because again, we invest in the people, right? The solution maybe dies, but the entrepreneur is fantastic and he's gonna flip and do something else. So, and I must say now, after doing this for even in the US now for 16 years, you should be able as an investor to identify this kind of behavior in about 3 months and eventually get out somehow, or not even invest. So test this. Is he coachable? Is she coachable? If you say something today, passive aggressive, yeah, sure, and then nothing happens. Or, yes, interesting, let me try, and then come back to you. This for me is the number one. Okay. With that, you can pivot, we can change, you can adapt, and so on. So if there's one lesson that I learned, that's the one.
Okay. I like it. A follow-up to that, because I have two questions. related to it. So the he's versus the she's in foundership. So both the two questions that are related here in the chat is how supportive do you find Brazilian investors of female or diverse founders? And are you seeing much emphasis on impact investing in Brazil? And I know that, full context there in the States, there was a huge rise in that and everybody raised diversity funds and everything. And now that's all died off for ESG. And I don't know where we've we just landed where we were before. So I don't see much progress. And that's a good question for you and what you've seen in Brazil.
ESG, same as what you said, all hype, FOMO, dead. Okay?
Yeah.
That's it. It's a greenwashing. ESG became greenwashing. That's not the case. It shouldn't be the case. So that's why the interest is I think that we have to rewrite the history here. Okay? So I'm not even going there. The female and diversity, I'll give you my numbers. Out of 150 startups, 60 are female founders. Okay, almost half. And out of that, from the female side, maybe almost half is LGBTQ. And on the male side, same thing, almost half is LGBTQ.
Is that specific? Is that a strategy on your part? Or how is that, just in that it's outpaced, even on a population basis? Where does that come from?
I don't know. They deliver. We like the profile. They work hard. Yeah. They're smart. Are they smarter than average? Maybe. I don't know. They work harder than, maybe they have to work harder than everyone to prove themselves, right? Considering the environment. But Brazil, abortion is legal. Gay marriage is legal. Everything is legal. There's no discussion. It's been legal for many years. So this is beyond us. So I think then people embrace what they are, they feel safe, and they move.
Yeah.
Simple.
It's beautiful. It could be so. It could be so simple here in the United States. Oh wow, thank you. Okay, so let me see if there's any other final questions that we'll get to just because we're at time. Doing back to investing. All right, we're gonna call it there. Again, Mike's email is in the Q&A, the one answered question there that I wrote in. If I'll still send out a follow-up here, so anybody that's attended and everybody that registered will get the recording, and I'll link his LinkedIn so you guys will have access, and he's very responsive, I can tell you, as a service provider. This is the GV Angels website. And I'll drop this up there too. Oh, yeah, and this one is ACE website if you guys are interested to know more. Yeah, I think there's a number of people here that would like to speak with you. So, all right, there's in the chat. So thank you very, very much. I know that we're supposed to have a full panel, but I think you've certainly held your own. It actually probably was better than if we had more people on the panel. So thank you sincerely for being here and sharing. And to everyone that's attended, we'll run these obviously probably every other month on future countries, just kind of going one by one down the list. But we appreciate having you, and I will let you get back to the rest of your day. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for having me. Yeah, you're very welcome. All right. Well, you have a good day. Take care. You too.